Hey everyone, and welcome to a deep dive all about modern dating and relationships. We're so glad you're here with us today. We're going to be looking at a really cool blog post from the ChatBX podcast,
Mm.
and they really dig into like all the challenges and the amazing stuff about finding love or just a partner, I guess, in today's crazy world. You ready to like decode the whole language of love in the digital age?
I am. And I
Mhm.
think this blog post is a great place to start. It's so interesting how they point out that tension between like really wanting a connection and then feeling totally overwhelmed by how much is happening online.
Totally. It's like, have you seen how social media is? It's all about showing this perfect version of yourself, you know?
Oh, right.
And then when you see that constantly, it's hard to even imagine like a real genuine connection. It's intimidating.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, are we comparing ourselves too much to other people? I mean, everyone's doing it, and then we start feeling bad about ourselves, or like we expect way too much from a partner.
It's true. It's like you start thinking, oh, they have to be exactly like this. And you're just setting yourself up for disappointment.
Huge red flag right there.
Oh, for sure.
Mm.
And then you throw dating apps into the mix. Talk about a recipe for disaster.
Oh, tell me about it. I swear they make it so much harder.
It's like that thing, right? The paradox of choice.
Oh, yeah.
You have all these options, and suddenly you can't even make a decision. Like, do you swipe right on every single person who seems interesting?
Right, or you're like super picky.
Yeah, and then you probably miss out on some awesome people.
It's a total mind game.
It really is.
And I think this whole dating app thing kind of shows this bigger thing that's happening. It's like we want everything instantly, instant gratification, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're so used to just getting what we want like right away. But building a relationship that means something
Forget about it.
takes so much time
Yeah.
and effort and vulnerability, which can be scary.
Mm-hmm. Scary is right.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, though, are we losing those skills? All this swiping and liking. Are we forgetting how to actually connect with another human being?
It's a good question. One we should all think about, I think.
So, okay, the blog post also talks about something else that's super important in relationships, but people don't always want to talk about it. Physical intimacy.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important, right? But sometimes it feels like everyone's got the wrong idea about it.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean?
Like, the blog post makes this really good point, right? It's not just about pleasure. It's way more than that.
Okay. Yeah, tell me more.
It can be like this path, this way to bond with someone on a much deeper level emotionally.
That's really interesting. And they talk a lot about communication too, right? Like being open about what you want and what your boundaries are. Man, that can be so hard to talk about sometimes.
I agree. It's definitely not always easy, but it's so important. I mean, if you want to build trust and respect, you got to be able to communicate.
Yeah, I feel that. It's like we see all these messages about what a good or a successful, intimate relationship is supposed to look like. But the truth is, everyone's different. Every couple has their own thing.
Exactly. And that's why you have to talk about it, figure out what works for you and your partner. No one else can decide that for you.
Okay, shifting gears a little bit. So the blog post also like kind of makes us rethink what we're even looking for in a partner, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I like that too.
They're basically saying maybe we're too focused on the surface stuff, you know, looks, how much money someone makes, all that, when maybe what really matters are those deeper things.
Yeah.
Shared interests, values.
100%. It's about finding someone on the same wavelength, someone who gets you. And I think what sometimes gets lost in the whole conversation is how crucial emotional support is.
Oh, tell me about it.
Like having a partner who's there for you no matter what, someone you can lean on when things get tough. That's what makes a relationship strong. It's the foundation.
That makes so much sense. It's not about always laughing and having fun, although that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's about knowing someone has your back when life throws you a curveball.
You got it. And going through those tough times together, actually, it can make your bond even stronger. It's kind of crazy how that works.
Yeah, I feel that. So we've covered a lot so far. The whole online dating scene, getting physical, finding those shared values. It's like there's so much to think about when it comes to dating these days. It's kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, it can definitely feel that way sometimes.
But I think what I'm hearing is like even though it feels like we're at the mercy of all these algorithms and stuff, we actually have a lot more power than we think.
Right. We're not just passengers on this crazy train.
Exactly. We actually have the power to make choices about how we want to date and how we want to do relationships.
Absolutely.
It's pretty empowering when you think about it like that, right?
Definitely.
I think this is a really good place to take a little break. We've thrown a lot of information at you, so let it sink in for a bit. But don't worry, we'll be right back to keep diving deeper into this whole modern love thing.
So, we were just talking about having more control, like agency, right? And I think the ChatBOX podcast takes that even further, which is so cool. It's like they're saying it's not just about finding any partner anymore.
It's about figuring out what being partners even means, like in this day and age.
Exactly. And it's totally changing. It's like all the old rules are gone.
Yeah, like someone just threw the rule book out the window, and now we're all trying to figure out what the new rules should be.
Right. Like the blog post talks about all these things that used to be like set in stone,
Yeah.
commitment, gender roles, what makes a relationship successful. It's all changing.
So true. And I bet that feels, I don't know, kind of freeing for some people.
Oh, hell yeah, for sure. Like finally, we can make relationships that actually work for us, that fit our own needs and wants. But it can be super scary too.
Oh, yeah, because there's no map anymore. Like, how are you supposed to know what to do?
Exactly. It's a whole new world out there.
Makes you wonder, like, is all this change actually making it harder to find love that lasts? Are we just, like, overthinking everything?
That's a really good question. And I don't know if there's an easy answer. I mean, think about it. Every generation has their own relationship struggles, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So the rules might be different now, but we all still want the same thing, connection.
Yeah, we just want to find someone who gets us.
Exactly. So maybe instead of freaking out about all the changes, we should just like roll with it. Be open to new things.
Yeah, embrace the chaos. I like that.
Right. Why not?
So speaking of things that are important in a relationship, the blog post talks a lot about shared interests and values. And I know that might sound obvious, but seriously, it's so easy to forget about that stuff when you're like caught up in the excitement of meeting someone new.
Right. I mean, think about it this way. If you and your partner are into the same things, you're naturally going to enjoy spending time together.
You'll have stuff to talk about.
Exactly. You can have real conversations, support each other's passions. That creates like this foundation of understanding and respect, which is so key for any relationship.
It's not about just finding someone who looks good on your arm or who has a fancy job title. It's about finding someone who you can actually connect with on a deeper level.
100%. And that takes time. Building a strong relationship takes effort. You got to nurture those shared interests, talk to each other, and be there for each other when things get tough.
So true. Speaking of effort, the blog post had some pretty good advice on how to do the whole online dating thing, which, let's be real, can be a total minefield.
Ugh, tell me about it.
But they had this tip about creating a profile that actually shows who you are, like your real self.
Yes, authenticity, that's what it's all about.
Because so many people try to be this perfect version of themselves online, which I get, but it just sets you up for failure.
Totally. Just be yourself. Let your personality shine through in your profile. Talk about your hobbies, the things you're passionate about, your sense of humor.
The right people will be drawn to that,
Exactly. And those are the connections that could actually turn into something amazing.
And it goes without saying, but use recent photos.
Oh my gosh, yes. Be real, be transparent. There's no point in starting a relationship based on like a fake version of yourself.
Exactly. Now, they also talked about like meeting people in real life, which I know can be a little intimidating for some people.
Okay.
But they had this idea of like going to events or joining groups that are related to your interests.
I love that. That's such a good way to meet people who are into the same things as you.
Yeah, like if you're really into hiking, join a hiking group. If you love reading, go to a book club.
Right. You're automatically going to have something to talk about.
And it takes the pressure off a little bit. You're not just like desperately searching for a partner. You're there to enjoy yourself, and if something happens, it happens.
Exactly. It's way more organic, more natural.
I like that. So, wow, we've covered so much ground. We talked about how relationships are changing, why shared values are so important, all the different ways to approach dating these days. I'm starting to feel like I'm getting a handle on this whole modern love thing.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's definitely complicated, but I think what we're learning is that technology can be super helpful, but we can't let it take over.
We got to remember what really matters, those human connections.
You got it.
All right, before we wrap things up with the final part of our deep dive, I just want to give everyone a minute to think about what we've talked about so far. It's a lot to process, so take your time. All right, so we're back for the last part of our deep dive into modern dating and relationships. We've gone over like a ton of stuff, from how crazy online dating can be to how relationships are changing like right before our eyes. But now I really want to bring it all back to you, the listener, because it's one thing to just understand all this stuff, but what really matters is how you actually use it in your own life.
Yeah, totally. It's like we've given you all the pieces to the puzzle, right? And now it's your turn to figure out how to put them together in a way that makes sense for you. You get to create your own masterpiece.
Exactly. So the ChatBOX blog post, it ends on this really cool note, about how we actually have more control over our dating lives than we think.
Hmm.
Like, we're not just stuck with whatever the algorithms throw at us or whatever society tells us to do. We can make our own choices.
It's so true. And, it's easy to feel lost or discouraged sometimes, especially if you've had some bad experiences or rejections. But those are all just part of the process.
Yeah, it's all about learning and growing.
Exactly.
And the blog post also gave some really practical advice on how to, actually put that control into action. Like being confident when you're talking to someone you're interested in, but also being yourself, like being authentic.
Yeah, finding that balance, it can be tricky.
Right, because you want to put your best foot forward, but you also don't want to pretend to be someone you're not.
Yeah, dating shouldn't feel like you're putting on a show?
So true. Should be fun.
Exactly. It should be about sharing who you are, your passions, your quirks, everything, and hopefully finding someone who appreciates that.
Someone who gets you. I love that. For me, it's also about enjoying the ride. It's not just about the end goal of finding a partner.
I totally agree.
It's about learning about yourself, figuring out what you want. Even if a date doesn't turn into anything serious, you can still walk away with some valuable lessons.
And sometimes the best relationships come from the most unexpected places,
Yeah.
So be open to anything, even if it doesn't fit into what you thought you were looking for. You never know.
Yeah, be open to surprises. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question. What really resonated with you today? What's one thing you're going to take away from this conversation and actually use in your own dating life?
It could be anything. Like maybe you want to be more mindful of how you use social media, or maybe you're going to be more intentional about the qualities you're looking for in a partner.
Or maybe you're just going to give yourself permission to be more real, more vulnerable.
Absolutely. The most important thing is to go into it with an open mind, a curious heart, and be ready to learn and grow along the way.
Because at the end of the day, it's not just about finding someone else, it's about finding yourself.
And never forget, you are worthy of love and connection, just as you are.
Love that. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into modern dating and relationships. It's been a blast. And until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep believing in the power of love.